This video is for advanced guitar players and for piano students who want to know a little more about jazz chords. For the guitarists out there, the chords we're going to see are going to be a little unusual, but they're all very clear functionally. They all like minor 7, major 7 or dominant 7 chords, so we'll know what to do with them. And there are not going to be any like obscure or ambiguous chords, but they will be a little bit unusual. A lot of times a guitar voicing will only work on the guitar. Many times when you want to use a guitar voicing on a horn arrangement or on a transfer to a piano voicing, it's not going to sound as good. Sometimes they're going to sound too muddy, sometimes they're going to sound unbalanced in other instruments, sometimes they'll just be corny. The guitar is a very forgiving instrument with respect to too many doublings in a voicing or too low of an interval in the voicing and stuff like that. So the idea here is not to stop using the guitar voicings that we use often, is just to be aware of which ones will work only on the guitar and which ones could be transferred to an arrangement for an ensemble of other kinds of instruments. The chords we're going to be building in this video will have structures that are resonant, and they are based on principles of jazz piano voicings. So let's see how a jazz piano voicing is constructed. So the basic jazz chord, the most common simple jazz chord, is the root on the left hand, the pinky, the 7th on the thumb, and then the 3rd on the right hand thumb. So you have the guide tones being played by your thumbs, the bass played by the pinky on the left hand, and the melody note will be played by the rest of the right hand. The bass note stays in the lower part of the range of the piano, and you can go up to this F. After that, the note is so thin that it doesn't sound like a bass anymore. It still can be at the root of the chord, but it doesn't sound like the bass note. So we're gonna keep our roots from this F down. And the guide tones also have a range. The guide tones are gonna work best around middle C. If the guide tones are too low, we're not gonna sound like guide tones. They're gonna be confused with the bass. And if the guide tones are too high, they're not going to feel like part of the meat of the chord. So as we will see, a lot of times we're going to be talking about the range of the notes to fulfill a certain function. And also we're going to talk about the range of certain intervals that, even though on the guitar they work well, the guitar can get away with intervals that are too low. On the piano or in a horn arrangement, it might not work. A simple major 7 chord will be 1, 7. The 3rd here on the other thumb, and then the melody note up here could be the sharp 11, the 5th, C major 7 sharp 5. That's major 7 13. C major 7 with the B on the melody. Notice that the B is doubled here because this B is the melody note and this B is the guide tone. You see that this voicing is composed only by 3rd and 7th. Very useful voicing. Or the other option, when you have the 7th on top, you can add the 5th, or sharp 11 and sharp 5. You can have the 9th. But then notice that there's a big space between the 9th here and the 3rd on the right hand. So you can fill up this gap by putting, for example, the 5th. This is a typical jazz piano voicing. Root, 7, 3, 5, and the 9th. This one pianists like a lot too. They think it's very well balanced, all in fourths. It's a very common construction. There is a lower limit where you can play the 7th. Most pianists agree that this C with the B here. This is too low. This B, it could be confused with the bass note. What is the lowest major seventh that you can play? Some pianists told me use this one, depending on the piano. In a lot of arranging books, they establish this limit at F. How does that translate into the guitar? So let's start with the F, E. That's the lowest major seven. And then the A, which is the third, those are your bass and your guide tones. Now, the melody could be B, then you have F major 7 sharp 11, you have melody C, F major 7, F major 7 sharp 5, F major 7 13, the melody on the 13, and you can have F major 7 just guide tones. You can add back the sharp 11, fifth, the sharp 5, and the 6. When you add the 9, you can put the fifth in between. Use the sharp 11 instead. You can put the sharp 5 and 9. Or the stack of fourths, and then when you add the third 1 octave above, it's more difficult to do in the guitar. But if you have a bass player who plays the F, you can just do that, and you have that chord that is only guide tones, and you have the A on the top, the third on the top. On A, you can play the A open, and you have that voicing on nothing but thirds and sevenths. Notice that on this voicing, I couldn't do sharp 11 and the 13th at the same time. But in other keys, I might be able to. For example, if I move to a G, then I can use the open string E to have that sound, major 7, sharp 11, and 13. Every time there's a chord that I need 5 fingers to do it, we can find a key that uses an open string, and then you can play that chord. For example, to do that major 7, sharp 11, and 13. In here is difficult, on the A flat is difficult. But if you go to A, you can do it because the A now is open. Or you can also ask the bass player to play that bass note. So, for example, when you have the F major 9 with the sharp 11, we can do it here. In here, it's more difficult. You can try to do this. I'm not that good at the thumb thing, but if you just play this, and the bass plays G, you have that sound. And now you can do the same structure, 1, 7, 3, and melody note using the minor chords, the dominant chords, the minor 7 flat 5, the diminished, all other chord types. Just remember that for the dominant 7, we have 3 kinds of possible ninths, which is flat 9, natural 9, and sharp 9, and you have the 13, flat 13, the 5th, and the sharp 11 as well. So there's more combinations. But let's see the minor now. We'll start again at F minor, which is, that's also we're gonna consider the lowest 7th. You could go lower, but just to be safe, so let's keep it at minor 7th interval at F and E flat. So for the minor, I have the 3rd here. You can have the melody at the 11th. This is not really possible in this situation unless you do and ask somebody to play F. But this F sharp, you can do it. It sounds pretty good. G minor 11. Those voicings work very well on the piano, and also like if we're gonna do a trombone section, these exact tones are gonna work. The fifth on top is a very common guitar chord, but know that this is a chord that also works in many other situations. With the 13th on the melody, and then the 7th on the melody. Again, you see just the guide tones. For the 9th, that's the 9th. You can put a note in between. It could be the 13th. It could be the 5th. And if you go here, you can do open string to have the 11th instead of the 5th. And here again, if you use an open string, you can have that same shape like this. It's another nice chord that is often overlooked by guitar players. Now 1/7 dominant. You can have the melody on a sharp 11, which is this shape, very common for guitar, very useful for trombone voicings too. In a big band section, for trombones. That sound is balanced and works. Here's with the 5th on top, and in this case there's no tensions. Is what we call the plain dominant. Jazz arrangers, in general, right, of course, don't like the plain dominant too much. They kind of stick out. If you have a passage that has a plain dominant, you can hear it right away. So jazz people like to put some tensions to avoid that. And this is the flat 13 on top, 13, and then this is not a plain dominant because it doesn't have the 5th. This is an acceptable way to play F sharp 7 with the 7th on top. It's doubled an octave below. This is the guide tone, this is the melody, and the 3rd, that's it. That's fine. And then you have the 9th on top now. You can have sharp 11 and 9. Here's, it's a little hard, but it's a little easier on the G. But you can do it on A. Interesting voicing, sharp 11 and 9. You can also put the 5th and the 9, flat 13 and 9, and you can put the 13th and 9. The 9th can be flat 9, all this combination. It could be the sharp 9. Another thing that pianists do on the 1/7 position, they tuck the 9th that is in between the guide tones, they tuck the 9 in the chord. This is another very pianistic voicing. Let's see how that works on the guitar. You can say A major 7, right? This 1/7/3. The 3 we can put in the other string, and now this string here is free for you to put the 9th. And then you want to put the 5th on top. That's an interesting voicing for the A major 9. And 13th on top, you can use anywhere up to G. Also in the minor, have the 9th tucked in. You can also, on the A minor, you can use this B open. can have the 5th on top, 7th on top, with dominants, you're going to have 3 kinds of 9s to tuck in between the guide tones. For example, let's say B flat, 1, 7, 3, 1, 7, 3, and the 9s are here. You can have the natural 9, you can have the flat 9, you can have the sharp 9. A lot of people don't use that one. On top of it, you can put the 13th, for example. This A13 flat 9, A13 sharp 9. It's an uncommon voicing, but it can work like in a progression of. After the 1-7, the other most important left hand position on the piano is 1-3. That's because in a progression, like a 2-5-1 progression, that's the way the voice leading work. There's a tight relationship between 1-7 and 1-3. But a third, that low on the guitar, it's okay, but it's too low for most situations. The piano doesn't sound good with a low third like that. Horn sections or ensembles are not going to be clear unless you want a special effect, just this wall. It's muddy, unless you want to be muddy on purpose. But so we're not going to use any of these major thirds here up until, well, B flat. You start being okay. B flat D. This is fine. And then the 1-3, you can use 1-3 in this region. Beginning with C major 7, 1, 3, and 7, right? Then you can put the melody on top. The first option would be the 9th. It could be the 3rd. Then you have that situation where only guide tones and the bass. And then you could put the sharp 11 with the 9th. And then a simple chord, the 5th on top with the 9th. Not so easy to do in this region, but you can do it here. Or 13. Same thing for the minor. 1, 3, 7. And then on top will be the 9th. Or minor 3rd, the 11th. With the 5th on top. A lot of guitar players overlook this one because of this bar here, but it's a sound that is very pianistic. Now the dominant, 1, 3, 7, flat 9, 9, sharp 9, 3rd on top, flat 9, sharp 11 with the 9, sharp 9, sharp 11, 5th on top with the flat 9, 5th on top with the 9, 5th on top with the sharp 9, flat 13 with the flat 9, with the 9, sharp 9, natural 13th, flat 9 with 9 with the sharp 9. You can also have a note tucked in between the guide tones. For example, the 3rd and 7, you can pass the 7 to the other string and use this string that is free to use the 13th, sharp 5, or the 5th. Let's say D flat, 1, 3, 7. This is the sharp 11. Interesting voicing. And then you can add something on top. Let's say we're in D, 1, 3, 7. You put the 7 here. This string is free to add the tension in between, and you have the melody note on the 9. Usually hard to do in the guitar, stacks of thirds. Let's see the minor. Let's say you have D minor 7, 1, 3, 7, 1, 3, 7 here. You can put an 11. 9th on top. Nice voice. You can put the 13th, and then you can reverse, because this is B and C, you can reverse B with C and do this. Dominant, you have 1, 3, and 7, and you can add sharp 11, flat 13, or the 13. You can do 13, sharp 9, flat 13, sharp 9, sharp 11, sharp 9. If you go here to the D flat 7, D flat 7, sharp 9 with the natural 5th, flat 13, 13, sharp 11 and 9. D9, 13, guide tones here, the B or the 13 in between those notes, and the 9. That's the sharp 9. Interesting, huh? Very easy on the piano, but interesting here. See how we can use those open strings to create different voicings, like E flat 7 with flat 13 and flat 9. Another one interesting is this one. Easy to do because of the open strings. What is interesting for us to keep in mind is that some of the guitar chords will not work well in other situations. For example, a lot of the beginner's guitar chords work very well in the guitar, but the translation to a piano or to a horn arrangement is poor. The first G7 that I learned, first of all, there are too many doublings. G, B, D, G, B, F. Too many double notes. Second of all, you're doubling the root an octave above. You don't need to double the root unless the root is the melody, or in a special case where the root is part of an upper structure that you are playing. Other than that, it's not necessary. And here you have the root played again. Here you're doubling the 3rd, which is a guide tone. You don't need to double the guide tone. Another thing is that the F on top is a tritone apart from the second voice, which is something that should be used with caution. It's possible, you have to be careful with the voice leading everything, but not, so it doesn't sound too harsh, unless that's your intention. The other problem with this chord is that this third is too low. On the guitar it works, for example, this chord, very common chord for guitar. This G beat doesn't bother anybody, but you can't really transfer it to other situations because that is a very low third. It's going to be muddy in other situations. After 1-7 and 1-3, the other combination on the left hand is 1-5, and that's very useful for the lower part of the piano. The fifth gives stability to the chord. So on the E, for example, you can do 1-5-3, major 7. That's a nice one. You can tuck a ninth right below the third. So another 1-5-3 could be 1-5-3-6. Very common trombone voicing in Thad Jones' arrangement of Tiptoe. He uses that voicing a lot of times. Another possibility is 1-5-3 on the left hand. Nice chord, 1-5-3, and then 11-7-9. And the same ideas apply. You have 1-5-3, you can tuck the ninth below the 3, and then you can have an add a melody note of a 7, for example. Here, in this case, the B is doubled, but it's okay because that's the melody note. So even though for some of you there's no new chords, you knew all the chords that I showed here, it still is a good idea to separate into categories, the ones that will work for arrangements and others that only work for the guitar. That's it. I hope that was helpful for at least some of you. And if you liked it, please share or subscribe. See you. Bye.